Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here for today's webinar on, why technology is really going to drive medical tourism in the future. And I have two panelists with me that are really excited to kind of drive dialogue around this topic today. One of them is Robert Page, the founder of Pulse, and the other is Eric Bunting. So Robert, if you could introduce yourself, and then Eric, if you could introduce yourself too, that would be great.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Robert Page, and I've been working in medical tourism, believe it or not, for now 21 years. I started off working with my family's medical practice. My dad and brother are both doctors that trained internationally, and we ended up publishing a guidebook that many in the industry might know of, the Mexico Health and Safety Travel Guide, which really was our segue into the industry. Immediately upon publishing the book, we discovered this monstrous industry of people that were looking for medical care. And we ended up building an offline, sort of website platform facilitator business, and did that for a few years. Shortly after, I got into, after booking thousands of patients for medical tourism going south of the border and to other parts of Latin America, we began to build a technology platform. So much innovation in technology, and just seeing the marketplace structures, SaaS platforms that were entering into the market. And we built a technology company, worked with for a while as a facilitator business. And that went really well, learned a bunch. As the saying goes with startups, is you're really trying to fail fast and figure out really what is the best solution for the market, because this is a humongous market and there's a lot of problems to solve and a lot of opportunity available. And just shortly after that, we began to build, around 2018, we began to build a new platform called Pulse Protocol. And Pulse is a platform that essentially focuses on helping doctors, hospitals, and facilitator companies with technology and marketing services to enter the market and to be successful and grow and to build what we call predictable revenue, which is a very difficult thing for doctors and hospitals to actually establish. And I'll go more into that as we talk, but that's sort of the segue into what we do, or the introduction to what we do. Myself personally, I went to Georgetown. I've lived internationally and worked internationally for 15 years of my life, not including all the medical tourism and travel research that I've done over the years. Worked in South America for many years, in Argentina and Brazil, then in Mexico, and also in Germany. That's a pretty good introduction.
Great, Eric.
Hi there. Thank you, Jonathan and Robert, for having me join today. I'm really pleased to be here. Just by way of background, I'm a professional venture capital investor. Been doing this my entire career. By way of background, I grew up in Kansas City, went to Dartmouth and then Stanford Business School, and then spent about 10 years in private equity in New York and LA, ultimately as partner in a $1 billion private equity fund. I then segued and really went out on my own, set up Overbrook Capital, which is essentially a family office to make early stage kind of tech enabled investments. And I've made over 70 investments and been very fortunate to have over 5 IPOs and at least 3 unicorns in my portfolio. I've been very interested in tech-enabled investments and in global investments. I've done business in all over the world, and really like Robert and what he's doing, and made my initial investment 5 years ago and came on as an investor and advisor. And as we'll talk about, I'm really excited about where it's going and excited to be a part of it.
Great. Thank you for both of you joining us today. So, medical tourism, it's estimated about $100 billion industry. Obviously that changed over the last year. Not a lot of travel, or it's been, up and down, and, some destinations are back up to where they were before. Some are on hold. The pattern flows what's going on with the pandemic. And I think the pandemic has created tremendous challenges, tremendous burdens, but also I think the pandemic kind of also potentially clears the playing field in medical tourism, because where people go now or in the future could depend upon how well that destination is handling the pandemic, or just whether it's open or closed. And so I'd like to kick it off, and with Robert, maybe you just sharing what have you seen happen with the pandemic, and where medical tourism was, and it is today, and where it's going.
Big question. I mean, you can look at different regions of the planet, and they're like really where people are headed. And right now, it's really around which countries or which regions are open, which ones opened faster, and also which ones took care, took the steps to care for their patients, to make sure that they set up the hospitals properly, to make sure they had the right screening done. So there's always this balance of business and then also taking care of people, and right now, just from our experience, at least in this side of the planet, we see the borders are completely open with people going down into Mexico, and Costa Rica has opened again. South America is closed, and you can see why. I've heard a lot about Asia. Understand that Asia has opened up to some extent. They've been very cautious, and there's not a lot of blockades going on right now. I think Europeans are having a bit of difficulty traveling outside of Europe right now. But within Europe, there's a bit more movement. You might know more about all that from your perspective, but I would say just my biggest observation, my biggest take from this whole thing is just how quickly we have moved to jump on the bandwagon, or really to jump on to telehealth. It's really opened things up tremendously. I mean, I read somewhere that in The Economist, that in December of 2019, there were something like 10 million Zoom calls per day. And then 4 months later, in March 2020, it was up to 300 million Zoom calls per day. And the estimates and the, I guess, overall polling is showing that isn't going to decrease by too much. I mean, it will decrease a bit, things that normalize and we go back to regular business, but people are accustomed to it now. And I think that the companies that observe that and they adjust their business models to align with that, they'll be more successful. And just as an example, prior to COVID, the pandemic, it was very difficult to get doctors and patients to do telehealth calls because they didn't know how to download the software. They didn't have a camera. They couldn't find the camera on their computers. They were older. It's not really they're not tech savvy, whatever else. And then suddenly they know right away. Yeah, I have that. And they know which button to click. They've already downloaded the software. It's very normal. And that sort of evens the playing field when it comes to medical tourism, because one of the biggest barriers to entry was the fact that you couldn't go in and see your doctor. You couldn't fly. You're not going to fly across the planet to go meet a doctor that's a prospect. But if you're looking at a domestic doctor in the street, you can get in your car and drive down the road. So it's much easier. But now suddenly all calls, all visits are telehealth, even if they're down 2 blocks away versus 2 countries away. So it really has changed things quite a bit.
I mean, one thing I've seen as an investor is, it's been a tragic, tumultuous year, but the silver lining in terms of a lot of the companies that I've invested in is the acceleration of technological adaptation and adoption, really. And change that would have taken 5 years has happened in 1 year. And you're seeing, whether it's real estate, people making lots more decisions online, the medical industry, which, as we know, has trailed a lot of sectors in terms of technology, is really rapidly embracing this and allowing people to, do research. And the people are expecting to be able to do research and talk to doctors online. And the issue is that there are not many companies that are really set up to be able to provide that connection. And that's one of the things that's so exciting about Pulse, is that we are really set up to be able to connecting the world's top doctors and hospitals and make it accessible and transparent, to the world.
Yeah, I think in like 3 weeks, everybody started to use telemedicine, where in 10 years, we pretty much couldn't, which shows that if we really want to adopt something, that we can. I also think that forced adoption that the pandemic caused us to really rely more on technology, phones, laptops, on demand, instant results, getting things delivered. So, I don't think, but personally, it's like there's a level of expectation I have now where whatever I want, I can get it at my fingertips. I use my phone, I pull into the store, whether it's a Target, whether it's the hardware store, if I don't want to go in, it's delivered to me in my car, at my home. If I want to talk to my doctor, my pediatrician, it's on my phone. It's instant. And I think one of the challenges in medical tourism of where it's broken as an industry is there's no technology behind it. And everything is done old school. It's people are using email, they're not protecting privacy. Everyone's got their own way to track things, but they're not really using the technology platform to it. So there's kind of a bad user experience from the customer, the patient experience side, and it's not uniform across the space. And so whether it's transferring your medical records or whether it's trying to pay or doing a consult, it's all across the board of how it's handled. And I don't think any of the doctors or hospitals have even considered, how do I make this convenient and easy for the patient? So in actuality, we've just created a lot of barriers to access. And it's not just for the patients. It's if there's a facilitator or insurance company who's a referrer, there's all these barriers to the medical records, to payments, to anything. No matter who I talk to and what profile they are, it's just not easy. And I think that until we really break down these barriers, the industry isn't going to grow. But also I think that because of the pandemic, there's going to be a totally different level of expectation of customers, whether they're corporate customers or healthcare consumers, of how they're going to expect, those healthcare professionals in medical tourism to transact. And if they're not at that level, they're just not going to engage with them. They're going to go engage with the people, that are now up to this new standard that we have. One example that I just experienced just a couple of weeks ago with a family member is booking them, a consult with a doctor in Latin America. And, just having to make the consult payment was, it was a stressful experience. It pissed me off. I know that's a strong statement, but I'm just so used to everything working simply and easily. And now I'm pushed into this patient portal where I don't speak Spanish. I've got to use Google Translate, which isn't perfect. And then when the instructions they give don't necessarily look the same for me because it's mobile versus desktop, and then I make a payment that's like 1% of what I owed, only to find out afterwards that then they tell me I've got to put a comma between the 145,000 in the center, of which I wasn't told before. So multiple times in going in payment. And it just left me frustrated. And I thought, if I'm a patient, would this make me question if I'm not comfortable necessarily traveling overseas? Do I want to do this? Is this going to be a seamless process, or am I going to have bumps in the road from payment in my healthcare delivery? And Robert, you've had the experience of being a facilitator. Maybe you can share how you're trying to really break down those barriers, for all the stakeholders in the industry and the patients.
So you hit it exactly on the head. It's difficult. It's very difficult. And that's really what Pulse is about solving. So solving the difficulty for patients and for doctors and hospitals to actually engage in the industry. And I'll tell you what, we started off as a facilitator business. That's really what the core of my understanding was, is for years and years, facilitating, really targeting patients to help them to get to the process, because they were the ones that it felt like they needed all the hand-holding and help. We're still doing that in a way, but we're not facilitating. We're essentially now giving the tools to the doctors, to the hospitals, to the clinics to be able to make themselves available, make themselves visible, and to be able to solve problems for patients, because that's, to us, the biggest hurdle. We did some sort of internal calculations, and we concluded that if there's 16 million patients that are looking for medical tourism on an annual basis, that only really represents 8 to 10% of the total number of patients that are actually looking for medical travel. And what happens is you're getting the 60 million that are actually doing are the ones that are really determined. They've they've got family in other countries, or they've done it before, or they're more they're less risk averse, so they're like, okay, I can figure this out on my own, I'll navigate, I'll solve the problem. But the ones that are looking and aren't able to find anything because there isn't a doctor respond, because the payment system is difficult, because I have to pay FX charges, I have to pay the wire fees, I don't know if I can trust them or not, there's no system that really creates transparency. Those patients, the risk averse patients, are bowing out and basically not getting care or staying home. So it's a huge disservice to them to not have a technology solution. And if you look at when factoring the market size for car service in the Bay Area, Uber looked at demand for taxis, and they were kind of like, okay, what's the total demand for taxis in San Francisco? But it ends up only being a fraction of the market that was actually there for them, that was actually available. And there were all these other potential users that needed the ease of use of having a mobile application, of having a transparent way to pay and an easy way to pay, because it was connected to your credit card, as opposed to having to flag someone down and or call someone and they wait for them for 20 minutes. You can look on Uber and within minutes you have a connection there. So that was, now we look back and it was obvious, but we see its pulse in the same.
Yeah, I can comment on that too. Yeah, I've made a number of investments in different marketplace businesses, which, this is a technological solution to allow, the world's top doctors and hospitals to connect with patients. And I think the Uber analogy, or I often think about it in terms of Airbnb. I mean, people have been staying in other people's houses for a long, long time, but most people didn't have any idea what was available or feel comfortable doing so without the platform of Airbnb being there and allowing people to have the payment mechanism, the transparency, all the reviews and the trust. And suddenly all this capacity, which has been there, is now evident to the world. And, just as in, today, there are lots of fantastic hospitals and doctors that work with international patients, but they, struggle, and it's really not their business to be marketing and building technology to communicate and transact with patients around the world. But with our platform and with the credibility and reach that the Medical Tourism Association brings, and Jonathan and his team standing behind it, we can then, connect the, this capacity with the demand. And, just as Airbnb is, I think, the largest hospitality company in the world, they don't own any hospitals. I feel like we can be a massive player in the global healthcare space, allowing real accessibility and access and transparency without owning any hospitals or clinics. We're going to be just helping those patients connect, those facilities connect with potential patients.
And I want to just add to that one thing as well, just to kind of take from there, is that, yeah, we're simply just focusing on the technology side of it all. We're not a facilitator company. We're not doctors. We're not doing surgery. We're simply there to connect facilitator businesses, doctors and hospitals, using the platform, a marketplace where everyone can engage, where everyone will receive value commensurate to what they bring to the platform. So if I'm the one driving the lead, then I own that relationship, and I'm, receiving the value for that. So it really is a vibrant environment where multiple players can participate. You can get access for free onto the platform. You can create an account, you can log in, and you can receive patients, or you can work with patients as a doctor, and you can receive leads as a coordinator and be able to work with different doctors. So it is a great environment, and it is growing pretty strongly right now.
I think, the trust, I know Eric mentioned trust. I think trust is very important. I think probably the pandemic has created it where, you need to really build trust now with your customers. And I think it's a big step for a patient to say, I'm going to go trust an overseas doctor, or I'm going to go transfer my private medical records through email that is not protected, and hope, that this isn't shared or used against me or something to that effect. There's a lot of trust in making that decision. And when you do look back at Airbnb and you look back at Uber, those original concepts, if you went back in the day, people would say that's crazy, right? No, it's crazy. Like, you wouldn't just hop into some random stranger's car in New York City or go stay at some stranger's house just because you found it on your phone, but it's that platform and it's the trust and that, community that is built. And I think that's what's lacking in medical tourism. And I think you both of your analogies of this huge customer base that was just never tapped into, you're only getting, that very small percentage of the people. And because we haven't built this ecosystem where we focus on how do we make it super easy and convenient with the trust. And that's the biggest gap. If I'm a patient, I'm a facilitator, and I got a patient and I have to go send their medical records to 5 different hospitals in 5 different countries. If I don't have a secure platform to do it, one, I'm exposed, there's risk I'm exposing the patient to. And we get patients' medical records all the time, hospitals, facilities, just accidentally emailing us. But also, I've got to go through 5 different processes of how I have to submit those medical records. I've got to wait and go through 5 different, I would say processes or timelines of when those hospitals decide how they're going to get back to me, how I'm going to organize that communication between the hospital, the patient, the different payment processes and everything. And it's just all these burdens where balls are dropped of why would anyone want to do business like that? Robert, like one question I had for you is like, why medical tourism? I know you started a facilitation company, now you moved in the tech side, but why did you even get involved in this industry? Why are you passionate about it?
Truly, I started, like I mentioned, 21 years ago. And at the beginning, it was more of a family business. I was helping out with my father and brother who run a medical practice, and we'd written these books. But really where it became a passion project for me was 7 years ago. My dad had cancer, and even though he's a US doctor and we had a diagnosis from a doctor in Mayo Clinic in Arizona and a treatment plan and everything, the treatment plan that he had was going to leave him with a lesser quality of life, let's just say. And he was pretty, not scared, but just wasn't really interested in it. He wanted to find other solutions, and but he didn't know what they were. And I had already had this experience, and I looked internationally and came back with dozens of options that we were seeing that were procedures that weren't FDA approved, and but they were being done in Switzerland or in Germany or in Thailand, and great procedures with 17, 20 years of clinical trials, improving success rates. And we ended up going that path and finding him a solution. And fortunately, today he's cancer free and we were able to solve his problem. The other side of it, though, is it really is what taught us that there was a huge problem there that we weren't solving. And when I was out, I was suddenly a patient looking for solutions. I had options on the table. I did my research. I speak German, I speak Spanish. I was able to really navigate the different websites, and I was able to find doctors, but no one would respond. I was emailing these massive hospital systems in Europe and in Asia, and I wasn't getting a response. Or I get a response a week later, and it would be, "Oh, this doctor doesn't work here anymore." Not like, here's the doctor's name, here's where he works today, here's another doctor that works for us that can do this, she's fantastic. It was just no. And it just hit a lot of walls, and recognizing it really reinforced this whole conclusion that we were coming to, was that really that there, we certainly can help patients, and I think both need help, but we can help the doctors and the hospitals just by giving them the technology. Because if you're a doctor internationally, and I know I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but if you're a doctor internationally, you're accustomed to, or anywhere, you're accustomed to domestic patients. Domestic patients learn about you from word of mouth, from friends and family, billboards. But if you're a patient coming across seas, you don't have that luxury. You can't just ask friends and family if that's a good hospital, because no one's been there before. It's your patients are scattered throughout the world. So there needs to be some way that doctors and hospitals utilize technology to be able to access this market. They need to get with the times. You know what I'm saying? Because it really is. We are now in this space where most business, most marketing is done digitally. Most marketing and connections are done online. It's not being done through billboards and paper ads anymore. So this is a way, Pulse platform is a way to help doctors and hospitals get there. And we actually built a whole marketing service that it really isn't our focus, but our focus is helping our doctors and hospitals become successful. So we thought, okay, we'll build this marketing solution. This used to work for us for years. we went and built this entire system out to support doctors with email marketing, landing pages, newsletters, affiliate programs, things of that nature that can really help optimize their efforts at marketing and targeting their patients, and really creating a strong communication of their brand to their market overall.
I mean, following up on that, I see, hundreds of investment opportunities a year. And one of the reasons that one of the important criteria for me are companies that make a difference. I'm not just looking to make money. I really want to have a positive impact. And I've seen the power that, a industry changing company can have. And, I really, believe in Robert and Jonathan and what they're doing. And I see it's hard to think of a need that's more important than health. I mean, it's the thing ultimately that's most primal to people is their health. And, what's tragic is, so many people around the world don't get the health care that they deserve, and because of, price or access or information. And I've also, just as an investor, seen the value of competition, and you can't have competition if there's no transparency. But I think what we're doing is bringing transparency and information and access. And I think both helping patients and doctors, find those patients, but also bringing just some competition and bringing some sunlight to an industry which has been very opaque for a lot of reasons historically. And I think that will make a huge difference going forward and really help a lot of people.
I think, Eric, I think it's a great point. Is I think that people do deserve. One reason we founded the Medical Tourism Association was believing that people should deserve transparency and pricing and quality, and be able to know anywhere in the world where they can go for care, and and pay based upon what they can afford, or pay based upon what the quality is, and having access to that information, and also seeing that it doesn't matter where you live around the world. There's a lot of average doctors, and a lot of people make poor choices when it comes to their healthcare. And it could be, a lot of the times it's not even their fault. They have a specialist, a primary doctor, and they say, go see this doctor. There's trust, but you don't know that there's better ones out there. I'm a big believer in second opinions. Medical tourism, really provides access to second opinions, but you're getting the second opinion from like one of the top surgeons or doctors in that country. And when you get an opinion from a top doctor, you typically get alternative diagnoses. You find out you're misdiagnosed, and then it narrows down to the people that actually need the procedure. But if we can break down the barriers in pricing and quality, but also allow people to see the best of the best and have those great outcomes, it's a differentiator. And with the pandemic, while some companies thrived, a lot of companies were hurt. Whether it's people in countries like America, for example, a lot of Americans financially hurt from this. And so I feel medical tourism is now more important than before, because now it gives people, access to huge cost savings depending on where they're looking to go. If it's Americans outbound, to know 50 to 90% savings for major procedures, or even pharmaceutical drugs or specialty drugs. It's a huge savings. And I think it's going to be much more attractive now than ever to self-funded employers. Because when times are great, nobody looks to change, nobody looks to save money. But when things are tough, people look at cost savings. So I think for customers and patients looking for cost savings, it's going to be a huge opportunity. For those that aren't, I think they're still going to look for options, because the pandemic, depending on where you got your vaccine and how effective it is and what's going on in the country, I think people for the first time are going to start shopping around and want that ease of access to shop around to really make a choice. Because I'm seeing that with my own family, because I've participated in medical tourism before, myself and family members, and there's going to be a lot of medical tourism some of my family members are going to engage in towards the end of this year, next year, and we're doing it through Pulse. But I'm actually, in my decision-making process, it's the surgeon's quality, number one, and expertise. The second would be what's going on with COVID in that country. And then the third is the pricing. and then looking at that in different countries. So I think it's very interesting because I think the pandemic has just changed people's mindsets of what they really need. Now, Robert, I know that Pulse is going through, crowdfunding right now. So like, what is crowdfunding and why did you choose to go that path?
Yeah, thanks. We've done, there are multiple vehicles through which to raise money and invest. And traditionally, we've done most of our funding through notes, convertible notes, safe notes, et cetera, selling stock to investors, venture capital firms in Silicon Valley and in Asia. And this time around, we decided we wanted to really work with our doctors and our hospitals and medical staff to get them involved, get them to be part of Pulse. And we opted to go the crowdfunding route just to really bring them in and make them partners or encourage them to become partners through their investment. So we're encouraging medical professionals to visit the Start Engine website. That's startengine.com/pulse-protocol website where they can invest today. And the minimum investment is $500 right now. So that's very little. And any investment $1,000 and above will give them bonus perks. And for investments of $5,000 or more, this is really where we're trying to focus in on doctor, hospital, clinic partners that want to join us. For an investment of $5,000 or more, we will apply a portion of the investment toward building you these customized and very proven marketing tools that we discussed earlier to attract medical travelers and really to get your business at a point where it's generating predictable revenue. And that means that if I put X dollars into my investment over here for digital marketing, that over here I'm going to get a result, a certain number of patients that are going to be booking their procedures because my brand is now visible. It's now being optimized and getting in front of as many eyeballs as possible, increasing my chance to get conversions. And once these patients go into the flow, we have Pulse, we have built a pipeline system from A to Z, where we can essentially take the patient from that initial investment of digital marketing all the way to a booked patient in your office getting treatment. So we have a pipeline system, we have EHR, we have a communication system, we have telehealth, we have a whole system that we can offer to patients. I can actually give you a quick view of the technology that we're looking at today.
I can just chime in for a second. I was really pleased when in your decision to do do some crowdfunding here and really allow people who are participants in the industry, who understand the industry best, to be owners in the business and really share in the upside here. So I thought that was a really smart decision on your part. And I know Start Engine is a great platform. They've got Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank as one of their partners. And anyway, I was excited to see that.
Yeah, there's really nothing better than having doctors and hospitals, medical facilitator companies that have invested in us, that are cheerleading with us. They're helping us get to where we need to get, giving us feedback. And obviously, if and when we're successful, they can be making introductions to other partners that would be interested in joining the platform. So it's really strategic for us this way.
Robert, can you show some screenshots of the platform? I'm a very visual person, just to see like what the user experience would be like.
Sure, I can show a few screenshots. So here we have a slide that shows pretty much how our system works. So as you can see, in step one, multiple participants that can participate in the platform. We have hospitals, clinics, doctors, independent marketing companies that can bring leads and sell them on the platform to our marketplace. Coordinators can be coordinators only, or they can also be marketers. They can actually bring leads into the system as well. Anybody in this entire system can bring leads into Pulse. That's the idea. So they bring them into Pulse, inject them right into the platform automatically. We have a code we use for people to create landing pages or to put it on their website or to put it in their social media or just in their emails to where people can actually link. Instantly, once they get onto Pulse, we have a third-party system of coordinators that have been qualified, they're certified and trained, most by the MTA, and they get their permission to be able to join the platform. They create their profile, and they can begin to engage with leads. So these leads are, of course, isolated to whoever generated the lead. So if it's a doctor-run lead, then that patient can only see the doctor that has actually brought that lead to the system. So this is done through an algorithm. We match the patient according to the language the patient speaks, the location the patient is, and which coordinator is actually available and can actually offer support in that particular specialty. It then goes into the Pulse platform where all the engagement takes place. We have a communication center, we have a messaging environment, texting, phone calls, etc. All takes place on the Pulse platform. It records and notes whenever something has been done, a phone call or a message. They can upload a doctor's profile, they can upload pricing, they can give, and essentially can allow the patient to upload medical records, diagnostic images. Once that's all taken place, the patient can choose to have a telehealth call with a doctor. We recommend that doctors charge, a small fee for that telehealth call just to establish a serious patient. Then from there, everything takes place. The transaction takes place completely on Pulse. We have a safe, encrypted environment where patients can pay through electronic funds transfer, they can pay through wire, and they can also pay through credit card. That way the patient isn't being exposed to these FX charges, and everything is in one safe environment. And the doctors, the coordinators, everyone can see all payments. We have a dashboard that's very comprehensive that allows the patient, the doctor, or the doctor and the coordinator to see how much money they expect to be making in the next few months, how much money they made in the past, which coordinators are booking their patients for them, what the success rates of the coordinators are. Very detailed data that is very supportive and helpful to enable anybody who's working in the Pulse platform to optimize their results. And then in step 5, you can see the end result is once everything's been done, all parties are paid based on what they brought into the platform. So we divvy it up according to a set number of rules for this. So it's very, very transparent.
So it seems like you're solving a lot of the problems.
A lot of problems. I'd say the whole thing.
Yeah, I think one thing that's very unique is also that patient coordinator side, where you're going to have this, almost like the Uber model. You got all these resources in there that could be patient coordinators, and then you could have healthcare providers that want to pick patient coordinators because they need help, and you could have patients who want to pick patient coordinators. So it creates a whole nother model because the hospital, may be dealing with patients with different languages they don't speak. They now no longer need to bring on a team of people who speak all these different languages to tap into these markets. All they need to use is patient coordinators on the Pulse platform, which to me, is a game changer and a level of sophistication. Because, for example, a cancer nurse from the US could be in the platform and you could have a patient, hypothetically, looking to go to, Saudi Arabia, from, let's say, Germany, and they could be a cancer patient. And, the Saudi Arabia hospital potentially in the future, could engage a cancer nurse from Germany to deal with this German patient, which builds the relationship, builds the connection, speaks the language, understands the condition, so there's a level of sophistication that I think the technology will really help allow the industry to scale in that vision of just making life easier and opening up this marketplace, which right now is just very siloed all over the world, and people just trying to be very old-fashioned and just expect the business to come.
I mean, that's one of the things that I think is so exciting about platforms like this. You look at Airbnb, for example, and there's so many additional businesses that have sprung up to basically help people utilize this platform. And it's going to create all sorts of opportunities for people who have expertise in a particular area of medicine or area of the world or customer base or other people to plug into this and utilize the platform to, basically fulfill all the other things that they're not expert in themselves in a very seamless way. And I think it's, time will tell, but I think there are going to be lots of really interesting businesses that crop up that just kind of use this platform as a backbone, and we'll be able to, earn a little bit of a, commission or, success fee as part of all that, and makes it really very seamless.
I think the other benefit too, is just the fact that if you're a startup in the industry, if you're a hospital in the industry, I mean, you could literally, try to drop hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars building technology, trying to create your network. And when I say that, it's not a hypothetical. I mean, we watch people, I'm sure Robert has too, burn through millions of dollars as a startup, or facilitators taking a year just to try to get contracts in place, or building technology that just doesn't work and nobody wants to use it. And this basically allows, it's the facilitator in a box, hospital in a box, almost, for free, allows you to just kickstart your business instantly, which, in itself is, I feel like, rocket fuel for the industry.
That's been key for me, is just, I understand what these startups have gone through, what these facilitator companies have gone through. It's a lot of work. I mean, it can take 6 to 12 months just to get a contract with a doctor. And you have to constantly make them happy by giving them patients. And so you want to go expand in another country. Well, you've got to keep these doctors happy that you're working with right now. So if I'm just focused on, let's say, our immediate country, Mexico, and I have one city, I've got 10 doctors. Well, now I get patients that want to know about going to South Korea. Well, if I want to go add South Korea, I've got to get more patients to make sure that both countries, the doctors in both country pools, are happy. And it just becomes really difficult because you're kind of trying to hold on to sand and it's falling out your hands. So that's a hard enough process right there on its own. You have the legal contracts, you have all the security and compliance, and the years of, I mean, just the technology build is difficult. I mean, most startups or most facilitator companies are going to more just rely on Salesforce and MailChimp and, Stripe and, I don't know, Zoom, and the multitude of technology platforms that they've got to tether together to create sort of a sort of seamless solution to their medical facilitation process. And it's going to get really expensive and cumbersome, and then everything else is, all your data is basically being put onto a spreadsheet, and just calculating one little thing, it just gets really cumbersome. And our only job is to build all of this technology solution that I'm just mentioned right there, to help all of these people to just get into the market. And we can do it because we have the volume on the side, because we have the scalability on our side. We can do this at a much more affordable and accessible price. So we've done the math. And if I'm an individual facilitator business, for example, who's spending $3,000 to $5,000 or $6,000 a month on marketing, and I've got some technology and everything else, this is way more affordable to utilize our technology, plug into what we have. There's a bit of a fee, but it's nothing compared to all the money that you're going to be pouring into your business just to build it up and get it off the ground. Same thing goes for doctors and hospitals. I mean, you also have to consider the opportunity cost. I've talked to multiple doctors that have said, yeah, I'm building my system. I'm building something. I've been wanting to build it for 2 or 3 years now, but I haven't gotten around to it. But I'm going to get around to it. And those 2 or 3 years have passed, and that's opportunities that they're no longer able to capitalize on, and they're getting older and their practices are changing. And, this is an opportunity to jump into our technology, jump into our system. And within, I'm going to say tomorrow, but within 2 or 3 months, we can have you up and running with all the marketing assets, with a very robust and vibrant platform profile, to where you exist on our marketplace and you're able to start engaging with patients onto our platform. So anyway, this is how we.
I think it's a good point. Because I'm making up this stat right now, but I feel like 1% of doctors are good marketers. And they're used to business coming to them. When it comes to international patients, I feel like most hospitals and doctors are terrible when it comes to medical tourism. Websites are bad. The response time is bad. There's no technology in place. And then the most amazing part is when you dive behind even the most successful doctors, like they're just rock star doctors and they're getting a large volume of patients. And you look at how are they managing their inbound leads for international patients, and you find out they're not. They think they are. They think there's a system in place, but a patient lead comes in, one person in the company sends something to the patient, passes it off to another person within that office. Maybe it gets passed to another person. It's not anywhere in a system. There's not reoccurring messages going. They're not doing anything to convert that patient or track what happens. And you ask, what's the coordination between different people in the office with this patient? How are you engaging them, or trying to convert them over time? And the answer is no, because their goal is try to close them in the beginning most of the time, and they don't have the technology, to constantly market and engage that patient. And I feel like they're losing a tremendous amount of business, even with the existing patients that are coming to them.
Yeah, they're not engaging with the patients at all. I just want to show this slide real quick. I keep popping these slides here, but right here, this is one of my most favorite just stats or slides, because it shows the bottom. If a patient isn't engaged within 5 minutes of that lead being generated, your opportunities to ever even get them on the phone to qualify them is dropping substantially. And within a half an hour, it's almost not even worth it anymore. And when I talk to doctors, the very few of them that actually do even deal with patients or manage patients at all or engage their patients, because most just let it kind of, the leads come in, but they don't ever do anything about it. But the ones that actually do something with it, it's usually 2 or 3 days before they even get back to a patient, which is exactly my experience when I was trying to find help for my father. They weren't getting back to me. Okay. So I've proven it over and over again. This is so visible to me. Doctors and hospitals aren't calling their patients. So we built this entire system, this infrastructure, this platform to help them do that. And anyway,
I think it's a very impressive stat. I mean, I always feel like we need to do another webinar where you can share a bunch of those stats, because it's probably mind blowing, right? Because I think the industry standard could be 24 hours at a high end. Some are a couple weeks, and they say, wait a minute, 5 minutes. How are we going to respond, in 5 minutes, let alone an hour?
No, and I think it's the Amazon Prime effect. We've all been conditioned with Amazon Prime to expect things, the next day or even the same day, and have everything accessible to us. And even what worked a couple of years ago for doctors is not going to meet the expectations of today. And as Jonathan said too, there's all these remarketing efforts. Someone who was a patient of yours in the past, they are most likely to be your best asset to help generate additional leads. And, but if you can remind them and stay in touch with them, they can help, maybe they need additional services or they know other people. There's just a lot of value that people who are expert in digital marketing can help you extract. And, I wouldn't expect doctors to be good at this. They've got enough, to focus on just being great doctors, and it's kind of back to the Airbnb thing. If I had a house that I was trying to rent, would I go out and try to build my own website and do my own marketing, or would I use an Airbnb platform? Just there's no question in my mind. I would use kind of the industry leading platform, and that's what we're building here.
I think your Amazon Prime model is a good example, right? I mean, we all just use it. I mean, when I use it for most everything. And give you 2 examples. A couple of months ago, I made the mistake of buying. I have an 18-month-old from Bye Bye Baby. It's like all of a sudden it's like coming in 3 weeks, and you're like, what? It's coming in 3 weeks. I can get stuff.
Cancel.
2 days or 3 days with Amazon is slow. Usually it's the next day. And then I had to get new water heaters in my house, and I ordered them from Lowe's, and I did it online. And for some reason, Lowe's did something where it was like, it decided on its own, you can pick up your water heaters and you're going to pick them up, but we're going to ship you the parts to install it. But it took them 7 days to ship me the parts. The water heaters were installed the next day with parts my plumber gave, and now I got to go return them. And I thought, this is such an inefficient model where you've mailed me this stuff, versus giving it in the store, and you just don't have it together. And another example I would give is, I don't know how this helpful is to people, but during the pandemic, I think you look at who's done an amazing job. Chick-fil-A, their drive-through process. I mean, their revenue has scaled, an amazing experience, super fast. For some reason, the other fast food companies just never picked it up. I look at, Home Depot. I bought something online for curbside for Home Depot a couple weeks ago. I showed up. I waited 20 minutes. It never came. I left. They never called, say, hey, we're out here. They just basically never came to deliver curbside. I go use Target stores and I do curbside, and I wait a minute or two and it's there. And there's just a confidence level in that. And I think that's the technology, that level of ease, convenient, instant, that Pulse provides, so I'm just very excited to watch it really scale in the industry.
I mean, and just look at just put yourself in the shoes of the patient. You know, you're dealing with a complicated cancer diagnosis. You're looking for answers. You're looking for some feedback. You're looking for alternatives. You know, if you wait for 10 days, do you feel confident about this clinic that they're actually going to take care of you down the long run? That someone's actually going to be there for you? And if it's some shady salesperson calling you, trying to push you, then that's not going to create it either. So there's this need to have an experience where you feel cared for and where it's pretty immediate, you know, some response, something. We provide email, you know, automated emails, we provide text, we provide multiple ways for patients to engage to where they feel that no matter what, we're there when they need us, you know. And it's powered by Pulse. We're doing this on behalf of our users. You know, we're the sales force behind the medical travel industry, if anything. Sort of a virtual back office for these users.
Any closing words of wisdom from either of you as we wrap it up?
I'd say no words of wisdom, I guess, and think of on that one. But I'd say if anyone wants to speak with me, they can reach me at robert@pulseprotocol.com. I'm happy to give a more personalized walkthrough of the platform, whether you want to be a user, an investor, or a combination of the two.
You know, I would just say, you know, actually kind of send it back to you, Jonathan. To me, it's the combination of Robert and the technology and you and Renee and the Medical Tourism Association and what you're doing. You know, I'd love to just kind of hear why you chose to partner with Pulse and kind of your view on this.
You know, I mean, we chose to partner with Pulse, you know, for one main reason is the systems, this industry, it's an amazing industry, super passionate about it. I've been since, you know, we founded it almost 15 years ago, and we've watched it grow, and then we've seen it hit a ceiling of where it's just not going to its true potential because there's nothing that ties everything together. Like I said, there's so many barriers, it's broken, it's fragmented, there's silos, there's no way to easily communicate or do the business. And that needs to happen from the supplier side, you know, the hospitals. It needs to happen for the facilitators, because we watch facilitators come and go in the industry, and it's just because they don't have the money, they don't have the time to build this stuff out. It takes longer than they expected. And then just from the patient side, you know, it's like Robert was saying, you know, whether it's a cancer patient, doesn't matter whether it's that or plastic surgery, you know, these people deserve to be able to use a trusted platform, you know, and to basically make it super easy for them to actually do it. And that's been the most frustrating part, is I think of watching how difficult we've made. So I think, you know, Robert and our vision really align great on this, of let's build something out that's trustworthy, easy to use, and let's bring everyone onto the platform. So it's really a perfect marriage. And, you know, Robert's also a great guy. And I think, you know, for us partners, you know, honest people, hardworking people, passionate people, he has, there's not many that have been around since the beginning of the industry from more of an entrepreneurial standpoint, but, you know, people who really get all those challenges and understand what is needed, I think is the most important, because we've seen companies come and go in this space. Like, you know, Medigo raised 15 million and then basically, you know, disappeared off the face, and other companies did too, just because they don't understand the industry. They don't understand what's needed. They just see it's $100 billion industry. We're going to open up shop and do it. And they're not actually building stuff out to break down the very specific challenges and barriers. And that's what Pulse is doing.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, that's, you know, a main reason why we partnered with the Medical Tourism Association and why we're so keen on working with you is you really did get the need for the technology. You understood it. You've been exposed to it enough that you know what's working and what's not working. And I think one of the main things that we just really agreed on right away was like, it's got to be easy as possible for doctors. We understood that right from the very get-go. You know, it has to be simple. So we've always had that mantra from the very beginning: just build something that is as easy as possible to use. And we're constantly perfecting that. And we rely on our partners to give us the feedback, which is one more reason why we are seeking investment from doctors and hospitals. Is We want these partners to be in there with us in our corner and helping us understand the industry. And we've brought on so many great hospital owners and doctor owners and insurance groups and whatnot that have now invested in Pulse, and they're in our corner giving us key, very key feedback to help us solve this problem. Because if we solve it for them, we can solve it for everybody.
And I think the one thing we didn't even go into is you look at the corporate side, as insurance companies, as self-funded employers get into this space, no, there's no chance they're going to grow and scale and adopt this in a old-fashioned way, where medical records are not secure and violate HIPAA laws or the Europeans laws, which are even more strict, and knowing that people are managing this in Outlook and paper and pen and Microsoft Excel, they're going to want to know this is handled in a very professional way. There's compliance, there's risk management, there's reporting, it's, all these things, which the industry doesn't have. So, what I'm excited to is to watch how this opens up more of that corporate buyer marketplace going forward. So I really want to thank both of you for joining us. And then with just one last question, just to wrap it up for Eric, if there were other investors out there that would want to talk to you as an investor, are you open to talking to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My email is ebunting@overbrookcap.com. ebunting@overbrookcap.com. Would be happy to talk to potential investors. And, I'm very, very involved as an advisor investor. Went over to Dubai for Jonathan's conference a couple of years ago and seen this in action, and really, really excited about where this is going to go.
Great. Well, thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.